ChatGPT. Maybe you've heard of it. If you haven't, then get ready.
This morning, a warning about the power of artificial intelligence.
Hinton has been called the godfather of AI. He says that AI systems may be more intelligent than we know, and there's a chance the machines could take over.
Artificial General Intelligence, AGI, a computer system that can do any job or any task that a human does, but only better.
Former artificial intelligence researcher with OpenAI has died. Balaji was known for his whistleblowing of the AI company. His death comes just 3 months after he accused OpenAI of violating U.S. copyright law.
You know, he became a whistleblower against the most powerful AI company in the entire world.
He kept saying I've not done anything wrong. And when we went to his apartment, we found that after 3 days, his computer was turned on and we knew that there was a password to it. How were they able to get access to his desktop?
We're inside OpenAI. Is it going to save us or destroy us? Let's go find out.
Today, I want to talk about OpenAI and Suchir Balaji, who is the whistleblower who worked at OpenAI, who was found dead, and it was officially ruled that he did it to himself, but then his parents came out and they were like, no, this is foul play. The thing with Suchir Balaji that makes him different from other whistleblowers, because there are other whistleblowers, and there are other lawsuits against OpenAI, but the New York Times lawsuit in particular, as well as that is the lawsuit that he was going to be a custodian witness in with unique and relevant documents, is very different from all the other lawsuits. This lawsuit would not only affect OpenAI, but the entire AI industry. It would literally cut it off at its knees. Even Sam Altman, who is the CEO, the head, the founder of OpenAI, said himself that it would be over if they were not allowed to use copyrighted material under fair use. There are so many people that are invested in this industry. If this lawsuit has the potential to basically decimate the industry, then there's a lot of people who have a lot to lose. So nobody's saying Sam Altman ordered a hit on Suchir Balaji. It's just, are there people who were mad at what he was doing who wanted to take him out? Or did the situation make him take himself out? It's like there's all this weird stuff about the missing thumb drive and the documents and missing CCTV footage and weird stuff about the toxicology. So the point is, I'm going to do what I usually do on my channel, which is I'm going to give you guys the facts, and then we're going to discuss the theories, and then you can decide for yourself. This video is sponsored by Hypnosio.
Welcome to Hypnosio. It's great that you're here.
A self-hypnotherapy app. They address the root causes of your quote-unquote bad habits. If you don't have good sleeping habits, or if you have issues with food. I'm a big emotional boredom stress eater. For me, I noticed through this app, the patterns that it identified for me is that I usually do this at night. The techniques they use are based on clinical research on hypnotherapy. 94% of users actually maintain weight loss results compared to the control group. It's not a quick fix. It's not this yo-yo crash dieting, or like, I'm going to be really good and restrict, and then later on binge, and then you're just in this never-ending loop of self-loathing. I've been there. They use guided hypnotherapy sessions that target the subconscious. And then when I wake up, I feel like a new woman. I want to hydrate, I want to luxuriate, and I want to something 8. They're actually doing a 15% off promo if you click the link in the description or use my code. It is a subscription service, and they offer 2, 4, or 6 month recurring plans. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you to Hypnosio for sponsoring this video and supporting my channel. So to really understand what happened to Suchir Balaji, you need to go back to when he was this boy genius. Also, you need to understand the rise of OpenAI as a company and what happened with that and how we got here. Suchir was born in 1988, and not 88, 1998, And he was basically a prodigy, according to his parents. His mother said, quote, "He was a prodigy. We knew he had excellent motor skills when he was 2.5 months. At 13 months old, he showed us he was not ordinary by picking up all the alphabet. Less than 2 years old, he could recognize words." Suchir started coding when he was like 11 years old, and by the time he was 13 years old, he had already built his own computer. Around this time, when he was a teenager, is when he started to become obsessed with AI, because in 2013, there was this kind of breakthrough with AI. There was a London-based AI startup called DeepMind, which would later be acquired by Google. And DeepMind showed that they had been able to get their AI technology to basically play video games and beat them. One of these video games was one called Breakout. There were other ones too, like Space Invaders and Pong. And this technology was able to play the game. Why do I'm talking like that? I need to calm my ass down. If you're following this technology, following the news, you're like, whoa, this is a big deal. Like, what else can it do? And so when Suchir was 15 years old, he said that he became super intrigued and obsessed, and he believed that the potential for this technology was insane. He said, quote, "I thought that AI was a thing that could be used to solve unsolvable problems, like curing diseases and stopping aging. I thought we could invent some kind of scientist that could help solve them." So this is when he decided, okay, I'm going to pretty much do everything to get into this industry, and that is the path he took from when he was just a teenager. At this time, he was attending a high school in Silicon Valley. He was raised in Cupertino, California, which is like the heart of Silicon Valley. And in this high school, he excelled. He did crazy competitions and won. Then on January 26, 2014, Google acquired DeepMind for around $500 million. A year after Google acquired DeepMind is when Elon Musk, CEO of Tesla and SpaceX and all of that, and Sam Altman, who at the time was president of Y Combinator, which is this company that funds other startups. He had also had an app called Looped, which is kind of like Find My Friends, like a social networking location-based site where you share your location. But the difference between Looped and Find My Friends is that with Find My Friends, you would have to like manually share your location. But with Looped, it would automatically do it. He ended up selling that for millions and millions. Then he became the president of Y Combinator. And at this point, they decide together, Sam Altman and Elon Musk, to create OpenAI. And the whole idea behind it is that they didn't want this corporation that's for profit to be at the frontier of this technology. They wanted to do something for the good of humanity. They also worried about the implications and the dangers of this technology, because there's this theory called the paperclip theory, which is basically, if you have this supercomputer, super intelligent tech, that you give a directive such as, I want you to make the most paperclips. Who's to say that this technology, if it surpasses human intelligence, would not destroy the world in the effort to make the most paperclips, enslave humans, kill them, make everything a paperclip factory? This is the paperclip theory, is to say like the dangers of AI. I found these emails that were between Sam Altman and Elon Musk in 2015 when they were talking about starting OpenAI. So it says here, the subject is question. Sam Altman to Elon Musk, May 25th, 2015, 9:10 p.m. Been thinking a lot about whether it's possible to stop humanity from developing AI. I think the answer is almost definitely not. If it's going to happen anyway, it seems like it would be good for someone other than Google to do it first. Any thoughts on whether it would be good for YC, that's Y Combinator, the company he's a president of, to start a Manhattan project for AI? My sense is we could get many of the top 50 to work on it, and we could structure it so that the tech belongs to the world via some sort of nonprofit, but the people working on it get startup-like compensation if it works. Obviously, we'd comply with/aggressively support all regulation. Sam. A few hours later, 2 hours later to be exact, Elon Musk responds to Sam Altman, May 25th, 2015 at 11:09 p.m. Probably worth a conversation, he says. They started with $1 billion of seed money. They wanted to show that they were serious about this. The gag is, though, even though OpenAI originally started as nonprofit, and the reason why they called it OpenAI is that was open source code. Stuff that would usually be considered secret of how they developed it would be open because it's like a nonprofit. It's for the good of humanity. It's interesting that it started like this and it ended up being closed in terms of the current tech that's being used in these way more advanced models of it. And also it's for profit now. On December 11th, 2015, they did a press release explaining, what OpenAI was. Greg Brockman and Ilya Sutskever, I hope I'm saying that right, who are now, well, one of them left. It's a whole thing. He's also connected to Suchir, but they were one of the original co-founders. They helped write this. And you'll see later on, they end up being on two totally different teams of this whole thing. They say, our goal is to advance digital intelligence in the way that is most likely to benefit humanity as a whole, unconstrained by a need to generate financial return. Since our research is free from financial obligations, we can better focus on a positive human impact. You really can't talk about any of this, Suchir, OpenAI, anything without talking about Sam Altman, right? Sam Altman is the CEO, and he's a Stanford dropout. When he was the head of Y Combinator, the guy who was the previous president, he appointed and named him to be his successor. And he would end up firing him, and he would end up saying that this guy is not what we thought. A lot of people say this. You'll see throughout this video, it comes up again and again. Many different people say that Sam Altman is manipulative, vindictive, and that he will lie, do whatever he needs to do to get what he wants, which ends up always being money, power, control. There was also employees who said that he was abusive. They say he had been psychologically abusive, that he would pit employees against each other for his own personal benefit by lying and deceiving them. They said that he was highly toxic, that shrewd, maneuvering. He's also like a crazy doomsday prepper. And maybe, is it crazy? Does he know something we don't know? I don't know. But I'll read you a quote. This is from October 10th, 2016, when he tells The New Yorker, I try not to think about it too much, but I have guns, gold, potassium iodide, antibiotics, batteries, water, gas masks from the Israeli Defense Force, and a big patch of land in Big Sur I can fly to. One example of how AI is already able to be sort of like a quote unquote bad robot is like the CAPTCHA, when they have like those letters that are slightly distorted in numbers and you have to like type that code to prove you're human, or there's like a grid and they're like, click all the boxes that are a bridge or a motorcycle or something. Well, these AI robots, whatever you want to call them, have been able to bypass that by like hiring humans or saying they're blind, like lying, like finding ways to get around restrictions to achieve the goal without anyone telling them what to do. But they've sort of learned enough from what they've been fed to be able to do this. Okay, so when you look at the timeline in 2015, when Elon Musk and Sam Altman started OpenAI, Suchir Balaji, the whistleblower who was found dead, he was starting his senior year in high school. Okay. And at this point, he's like fully obsessed with AI in general. He's very aware of OpenAI being started. He was already obsessed with DeepMind before this happened. And he's also, again, winning competitions, excelling in school, really doing well. He ends up winning the platinum division of the US, what is it called? Computing Olympiad, which is like the platinum division is like the highest level. It requires understanding like complex algorithms and solving problems and having the highest knowledge in computing. And he wins that. He was 17 years old when he won this platinum division. So he ends up getting recruited by Quora. Quora is this website, you may have heard of it, where you ask questions, you get answers. He ends up getting recruited there at the age of 17. Then he graduated from high school and he took a gap year before he went to UC Berkeley to study computer science. It was during this gap that he really became obsessed with neural networks, which is the basic thing that is behind all this AI tech. Neural networks, they learn skills by analyzing like insane amounts of data, like a super brain. As a matter of fact, these neural networks can even create their own language. There was this research project that was going on with Facebook. Two computer bots or whatever started talking to each other in their own language, and they ended up shutting down this program. This was in 2017. Shut up. Facebook abandoned an experiment after two artificially intelligent programs appeared to be chatting to each other in a strange language only they understood. It says, indeed, some of the negotiations that were carried out in this bizarre language even ended up successfully concluding their negotiations while conducting them in the entirely bizarre language. They had them like make deals to sell stuff to each other, and in the process of these two robots trying to negotiate deals, they created their own language. So there's Bob and Alice, these two robots that are negotiating. And it's like, I can, I, everything else. Alice says, balls have zero to me, 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 me too. And then Bob says, you, I, everything else. Alice responds, balls have a ball to me, to me, to me, to me. Also in 2017, Google had revealed that the AI that it uses for its Google Translate tool created its own language, which it would translate things into and then out of. And they said that the company was happy with that development, so they allowed it to continue. Then it says here also, another study at OpenAI found that artificial intelligence could be encouraged to create a language, making itself more efficient and better at communicating as it did so. That was in 2017. Now we're going to go to 2018, and two things happened in 2018. First, Suchir begins an internship at OpenAI, and also in 2018, Elon Musk leaves OpenAI. He's very upset, and he leaves. So why did Elon Musk leave OpenAI? Depends on who you ask. If you ask Sam Altman, who they're beefing right now, he would say, well, he wanted to buy OpenAI and do it for himself, but we refused, and so that's why he left. If you ask Elon Musk why he left OpenAI, he would say it's because he's upset that they tried to turn it into a for-profit, and that's why he left. And he even sued them, trying to stop them from becoming for-profit, but it didn't work. I mean, the lawsuit's still ongoing. But in March of 2019, OpenAI became for-profit. They opened a subsidiary called OpenAI LP, and they were then able to get investors. And as of now, Microsoft is the largest investor in OpenAI. It is the majority shareholder, stakeholder in OpenAI. And so you could technically kind of sort of say that just like Google owns DeepMind, Microsoft owns OpenAI. To a lot of people, this is kind of like, well, the whole point of OpenAI was to be nonprofit. And now it's for-profit, and Microsoft, how are they different from Google, huge ass tech corp, are the majority stakeholders. Like, what is the point anymore? In 2020, Suchir and a bunch of other Berkeley graduates end up being hired by OpenAI. In 2020 is also the beginning of this revolving door at OpenAI, where a lot of these employees would get disillusioned. They'd be like, wait a minute, we thought we were doing something different here. We thought we were doing something for humanity, not for profit. It doesn't seem this way. Also, the speed in which things are getting rolled out starts to become a problem, because their whole idea of making AI safe is to be really cautious with how you release it, so that it is considering the effects that it would have on society. In Silicon Valley, what's their motto, right? Move fast, break things.
Reid Hoffman, the co-founder of LinkedIn and an early investor in Facebook, he was an early OpenAI backer.
That's awesome.
A long time.
Yes.
You have been on the ground floor of some of the biggest tech platform shifts in history. The beginnings of the internet, mobile. Do you think AI is going to be even bigger?
I think so.
You coined this term, blitzscaling.
Blitzscaling, in its precise definition, is prioritizing speed over efficiency in an environment of uncertainty. How do you go as fast as possible in order to be the first to scale? The speed at which we will integrate it into our lives will be faster than we integrated the iPhone into our lives.
So this is, again, the antithesis of what this was created to do. And that's when a lot of these employees start to get disillusioned, and you'll see this happens to Suchir as well. Okay, now let's talk about WebGPT, because WebGPT is the precursor really to ChatGPT. And Suchir Balaji was a big part of this. He was on this program, and this was a research program. Now, when you are a research program and you're not like this for-profit product, the rules of copyright don't apply. Suchir himself said, quote, with a research project, you can, generally speaking, train on any data. That was the mindset at the time. And ChatGPT was launched under OpenAI LP, the for-profit part of OpenAI, and it's for profit. You can pay to have it, right? So it is now a product that is competing with the stolen copyrighted information, and that makes it copyright infringement. So that was all in 2020. Now it's 2021, and we have another bombshell. Okay, Sam Altman's sister. She basically accuses him of SAing her from when she was a child, from when she was 3. The very graphic stuff, the worst things you can imagine, and for years, even to the point when because he's older than her, and so she started when she was 3, it went on till she was like a teenager, and there was towards the end, she says, a time when he was doing it as a young adult. Now, Sam Altman is gay. He's married to a man, and she even, in this tweet I found of hers, said, like, while she was revealing what she alleges he did, she said, like, "You're welcome for letting me help you figure out your sexuality." Here's where we need to talk about Sam Altman and betrayals and his vindictive nature that people say he has. Because think about it. Right now, he feels hella betrayed by several people. First of all, he feels like Elon Musk betrayed him. They started this thing together and now he left and he's suing him and all this. Now he feels his sister betrayed him, whether it's true or not. In any case, he feels like she's speaking out against him and all that. And you'll see that he doesn't really like it. I mean, who likes it when you feel like you've been betrayed? Nobody. But, you know, when you're powerful and stuff and you have that nature, there's a lot of things you can do, allegedly. Here's some quotes about his time at Y Combinator and them saying how vindictive he is, okay? They say that glimpses of sensitivity to criticism are visible too. About Altman from fellow YC partners, quote, "He was a formidable operator, quick to smile, but also quick to anger. If you cross him, he'll joke about slipping Ice-9 into your food. Ice-9 was a poison from a Kurt Vonnegut book." I love Kurt Vonnegut. There's going to be another betrayal around this time, and that is some of these employees that left, that felt like he lost sight of the mission of OpenAI. They left and they started their own AI business to compete with him called Anthropic. And so now he feels betrayed a third time. Sam Altman was really pissed about Anthropic, these people that left. And he's like, okay, they know all this stuff. They've been on the inside. They're going to release something. We need to speed up the release of ChatGPT. So they start going pedal to the metal. And there was internal division when they were doing this, because again, right, you've got these people that say, hey, we need to be cautious, we need to take our time. And then it was Sam Altman being like, we need to roll this out as soon as possible because they're going to do something first and compete with us, and then we're going to be useless. And again, it's all about the competition and the profit, not the original mission statement. So on November 30th, 2022, ChatGPT was released and it was so successful. They couldn't have predicted how successful it was. It became almost a household name overnight. In the first month, there were 1 million users, and by the third month of its release, there were over 100 million users of ChatGPT. Apparently, this insane success that happened virtually overnight or over 3 months created a lot of pressure for the employees, and this is what they had to say. Quote, it says, under the increasing strain, some employees struggled with mental health issues, communication was poor, coworkers would find out colleagues had been fired only after noticing them disappear on Slack. Many members of the team, including a growing contingent fearful of the existential risk of more advanced AI models, felt uncomfortable with how quickly GPT-4 had been launched and integrated widely into other products. They believed that the AI safety work they had done was insufficient. And this is when Suchir Balaji really becomes disillusioned. A lot. And he starts thinking like, damn, this isn't what I thought this was going to be, especially because once ChatGPT was launched and everybody was using it, it started to become obvious that there was a lot of copyrighted information that it was spewing out verbatim. Things like now, if you check it, there's a lot of stuff now that there's lawsuits and stuff that are different. But back then, it would spit out verbatim things from books, newspaper articles, things that people, humans, had worked hard for. And there is a paywall for these things because this is their work. They need to be paid for it. Slave days are over. And now there's this robot that is spewing it out verbatim and competing with it when it stole that from them. Newspapers and creators were suing OpenAI. authors that we know, like John Grisham, George R.R. Martin, the author of Game of Thrones book series, or is it A Song of Ice and Fire? Anybody who is creative and creates things with their mind, okay, they were pissed because it's like, your robot stole my shit. You stole my shit and gave it to your robot, actually. Now it's 2023 and shit gets even crazier. The first thing that happens is in April of 2023, the New York Times, they try not to sue OpenAI, but they still have a grievance. So they go to OpenAI directly and they're like, listen, you stole our shit. We don't like that. We don't want to sue you, even though we can. Let's try to work something out. And OpenAI is like, no. Bye. Fuck off. That's verbatim what was said. No, but basically they didn't work out a deal. New York Times is like, okay, let's go back to the drawing board and figure out what we're going to do. Meanwhile, there's this scandal that happens with Kenyan moderators that were outsourced and hired by this company called Sama that OpenAI hired. Now, OpenAI thought that it was paying these Kenyan employees $12 an hour, which is still much more affordable than they would have to pay workers in America to do this moderating. But Sama, the middleman, was pocketing 10 of those $12 an hour and giving them $2 an hour. And that was before taxes, sometimes even $1.50.
Honestly, it's like modern day slavery because it's cheap labor.
Whoa, what are you? Whoa.
It's cheap labor.
Though Sama says that's a fair wage for the region.
This job I would normally pay $30 in US, but because you are Kenya, $2 is enough for you. That idea has to end.
But that isn't even the problem here. The issue was that they were having them look at the most vile things, like they were moderating things, because the problem that was happening was that in the early versions of ChatGPT, it was giving out hate speech and children of the corn, if you know what I'm saying, like really messed up stuff. And so they were like, okay, this is a problem. We need to have someone to moderate the things that they're being trained on so that they can identify that these things are bad and we don't have our chat bot spewing this shit. The problem is, according to these Kenyan moderators, they said that they were not told that they would have to watch these things as part of their job.
The workers told us they were tricked into this work by ads like this that describe these jobs as call center agents to assist our clients' community and help resolve inquiries empathetically.
I was told I was going to do a translation job.
And when they first started, they said that they didn't have to moderate really messed up stuff. They'd have to start off saying, put a square around a person or around a car or around a dog and just label it dog, car, person, so that eventually the robot will be able to identify these things. And then it started to get worse and started to be really foul, messed up shit.
I was watching dismembered bodies or drone attack victims, you name it.
I looked at people being slaughtered, people engaging in sexual activity with animals.
Basically, all day long?
Yes, all day long. 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week.
Are you a different person?
Yeah, I'm a different person. I used to enjoy my marriage, especially when it comes to bedroom fireworks. But after the job, I hate sex.
You hated sex?
After countlessly seeing those sexual activities on the job that I was doing, I hate sex.
So then I found this other interview that was done with this employee of OpenAI, and she was asked about the Kenyan scandal, and she was like, yeah, we don't work with them anymore.
These workers in Kenya were getting paid $2 an hour to do the work on the back end. And my understanding is this work it can be difficult, right?
We chose that particular contractor because of their known safety standards, and since then we've stopped working with them.
But in true AI fashion, in the wave of the future, they are now going to outsource this job to robots.
Isn't this going to accelerate the misinformation problem? I mean, we haven't been able to crack it on social media for like a couple of decades.
The goal is not to predict the next word reliably or safely.
So now it's November 2023, and this is where the crazy drama happens, where Sam Altman gets fired and then rehired in a couple of days. And the way the shit went down was kind of insane. So remember when I told you in the beginning, when OpenAI was founded, that press release was written by Greg Brockman and Ilya Sutskever. These two OG members of OpenAI, they're on different teams, because now there's teams. You've got the Move Fast and Break Things for Profit team, which is Sam Altman and the people who are loyal to him, including Greg Brockman. And then you've got the other team where Ilya Sutskever, who is the co-founder and chief scientist, he's also on the board. He is the more like, we need to slow down. This is for the good of humanity. Like, what are we doing? He's more cautious.
Scientists have been accused of playing God for a while. There is a real sense in which we are creating something very different from anything we've created so far. Yeah, I mean, we definitely will be able to create completely autonomous beings with their own goals. The very first AGIs will be basically very, very large data centers, consuming like 10 million homes worth of energy. I think AI has the potential to create infinitely stable dictatorships. The problem of fake news is going to be 1,000,000 times worse. Cyber attacks will become much more extreme. We will have totally automated AI weapons.
Now, keep in mind, Ilya Sutskever, he's Suchir Balaji, the dead whistleblower. He's his mentor. And they both actually ended up quitting OpenAI on the same day, but I'm getting ahead of myself. That happens later. Now, this guy, Ilya Sutskever, his mentor, was the father of AI.
Hinton has been called the godfather of AI, and there's a chance the machines could take over.
Does humanity know what it's doing? No. And so human beings will be the second most intelligent beings on the planet. Yeah.
Ilya and Jeffrey wrote this paper, research paper, that was like the groundwork, the framework of AI as we know it today. Jeffrey ended up working for Google and ended up quitting Google because he wanted to speak out about the dangers of AI, in which he said he regrets his life work and he believes that AI has the potential to wipe out humanity.
One of the ways in which these systems might escape control is by writing their own computer code to modify themselves. That's something we need to seriously worry about.
Remember I told you about the paperclip theory, like if you give this this technology too much autonomy, it could destroy humanity to create paperclips, right? There was a program launched called AutoGPT. So it says a system like AutoGPT can generate computer programs. If researchers give it access to a computer server, it could actually run those programs. In theory, this is a way for AutoGPT to do almost anything online, retrieve information, use applications, create new applications, and even improve itself. Researchers, companies, and criminals could give these systems goals like make some money, and they could end up breaking into banking systems or fomenting revolution in a country where they could hold oil futures or replicating themselves when someone tries to turn them off. You'll see over time that the exact thing that OpenAI was created to prevent becomes the exact thing that OpenAI does. And it all culminates to a head. The way this shit went down was wild. Okay, so it started with this warning letter that the employees at OpenAI sent to the board of directors, where they were basically saying that there has been this crazy new breakthrough in the secret program called Q star, and it's Q asterisk, but they say Q star. They thought that this discovery that the Q star program had made would, quote, threaten humanity. Given vast computing resources, the new model was able to solve certain mathematical problems, the person said, on condition of anonymity because the individual was not authorized to speak on behalf of the company. Though only performing math on the level of grade school students, acing such tests made researchers very optimistic about Q-star's future success, the source said. Some at OpenAI believe Q-star could be a breakthrough in the startup search for what's known as Artificial General Intelligence, or AGI. One of the people told Reuters, OpenAI defines AGI as autonomous systems that surpass humans in most economically valuable tasks. The thing that's different with Q-star, with the mathematical thing versus the LLMs that are the large language models that are also commonly known as chatbots, which is what ChatGPT is. Now, there's a margin of error there with language because it's not like there's one hard and fast answer and that's it. With math, there is no margin of error. 1 + 1 = 2. Unless you're my previous law school professor who told me that to a lawyer, 1 + 1 equals whatever you want it to equal. It's part of the reason why I dropped out of law school, but that's a different story for a different day. So the fact that even though it was grade level math, that they were acing that in its infancy, that means that eventually they'll probably be able to get high level math correct all the time, which is insane if you think about the implications of that. And so that's why that breakthrough was so huge. Now, the problem was Sam Altman was accused by the board and other employees of being very deceptive and lying about things like that. He wouldn't tell them the advancements they made because he didn't want them to restrict them rolling it out or using it. Additionally, he was then going to even foreign companies, investors like Saudi Arabia and stuff like this, and telling them about these advancements. And he didn't even tell his own board. Speaking of foreign investors, what's really interesting is that now with this whole lawsuit that's going on with the New York Times regarding copyright infringement, Sam Altman has come out and is taking the argument approach of saying he wants the government to interfere and rule that his use of copyrighted material should be fair use, because he said the danger is with China. Okay, China has their own AI chatbot. He is saying, number one, he's claiming they stole everything from him. So he's basically like, you stole my stolen shit. Then he's also saying, listen, if we have to abide by copyright, we can't compete with the Chinese chatbots. So it's national interest to rule that this is fair use and not copyright infringement. But it's interesting that he's using the national security argument when he's willing to take donations from foreign investors in the billions and not tell his own board about this stuff. Do you see what I'm saying? This is the same shit that happened and he was accused of doing with Y Combinator. That was the company he was the president of before he also got fired for doing the same shit. He started some side company with his brother. He and his brother were using this insider knowledge to invest into their own side companies and not telling anyone, like double dipping into the shit. And that's the theme, like the greed, it blinds people. So now let's get back to the firing. So when Ilya caught wind of this stuff, Ilya ends up reaching out to him and saying to him, hey, can you hop on like a Google Meet video chat? We need to talk. And Sam's like, okay. And then he's like, you're fired. And then Sam's like, I'm fired? Baby, just wait and see what I'm about to do to you. They say that Sam Altman created a war room in his home when this happened with all his loyal employees from OpenAI, and they started brainstorming like, how do we get back in here? Then he goes to Twitter, Sam, and he tweets this. He says, I loved my time at OpenAI. It was transformative for me personally, and hopefully the world a little bit. Most of all, I loved working with such talented people. We'll have more to say about what's next later. And he did the salute emoji, okay? Then he tweeted again. A few hours later, he says, I love you all. Today was a weird experience in many ways, but one unexpected one is that it has been sort of like reading your own eulogy while you're still alive. The outpouring of love is awesome. One takeaway, go tell your friends how great you think they are. Remember Greg Brockman, the one who's on Team Sam, who was one of the original founders? He resigned in protest. He also went to Twitter and he posted this. He said, hi, everyone. I'm super proud of what we've all built together since starting in my apartment 8 years ago. We've been through tough and great times together, accomplishing so much despite all the reasons it should have been impossible. But based on today's news, I quit. Genuinely wishing you all nothing but the best. I continue to believe in the mission of creating safe AGI that benefits all of humanity. And then Microsoft got involved because this is what Sam wanted. He said, I want to be CEO again. I want to fire everyone on the board who voted to fire me. And Microsoft is like, oh, we want to be on the board too. Because even though they were majority stakeholders and investors in OpenAI, they didn't have a seat at the board. They're like, we want a seat at the board too. And then they started saying publicly, like, we're going to take Sam Altman and Greg Brockman, and we're going to offer the employees at OpenAI a lot of money, more than they're getting. And we're going to start our own AI company to compete with OpenAI. And still, though, the board held steady and said, no, we're not going to reinstate you. No, negotiations fell through. But then something happened. There was this open letter from over 700 of the over 700 employees, like most of the employees at OpenAI wrote this letter where they said, basically, if you don't bring Greg and Sam back, we are going to quit and we're going to go to like Microsoft or whatever and work with him. You need to put them back. Now, at first, everyone was like, oh shit, all the employees love him. He must be great. Like, this is so fucked up. This is a fucking like a coup d'etat. Okay. This is like a hostile takeover. Like, Ilya's a piece of shit. How could he do this to Sam? That letter, coupled with this crazy emotional thing that happened where Greg Brockman, the loyal one who quit in protest for Sam, apparently he and his wife got married at the OpenAI offices. And Ilya was the officiated the marriage, is how you say that, I think. And she goes to OpenAI's offices after Sam Altman fired and Greg quit, and she cries to Ilya and she begs him to reconsider. And so Ilya, she tugged on his heartstrings, and now he's seeing all the employees sign this thing. He's like, okay, the tides turn. Turns out, okay, because I looked through all the signatures of those 700 people who signed, and I think number 400, if memory serves, was Suchir Balaji's name on there. And I was like, oh, wait a minute, I thought you were Team Ilya. Turns out there was a whole ass alleged blackmail situation that got all these signatures, because that's a lot. Even on a good day, that's a crazy amount if there's two tribes, that even Sam Altman said there's two tribes. So here's the quote about their signatures and if they were coerced or not. You decide. I'm telling you, you decide. I'm just going to read the quote. It says here, for longtime employees, there was added incentive to sign. Altman's departure jeopardized an investment deal that would allow them to sell their stock back to OpenAI, cashing out equity without waiting for the company to go public. The deal, led by Joshua Kushner's Thrive Capital, values the company at almost $90 billion, according to a report in the Wall Street Journal. And it could have been threatened by tanking value triggered by the CEO's departure. The pressure on Sutskever to reverse his vote was particularly intense. Less than 3 days later, he wrote on X that I deeply regret participating in the board's decision. He also added his name to the employee resignation letter and vowed to reunite the company. This is the tweet Ilya made. He said, I deeply regret my participation in the board's actions. I never intended to harm OpenAI. I love everything we've built together, and I will do everything I can to reunite the company. And then Sam Altman retweeted it with 3 hearts. And they basically end up rehiring Sam Altman as CEO. They fired most of the board. Ilya's no longer on the board. Ilya tweeted and deleted this. It says, one such lesson is that the phrase, the beatings will continue until morale improves, applies more often than it has any right to. Then he deleted that because he's probably going to get beat again. Allegedly. Allegedly. This is all alleged. My conspiracy theory, my speculation. Don't sue me. I would never kill myself. Okay, I love life. My lip gloss is popping. Also, turns out, according to Suchir Balaji's mom, he hated Sam Altman. She said, he's a very weird person about Sam Altman. Suchir hated him. That much I can tell you. All his friends say he was very vocal against Sam Altman. He never hated anyone in his life. I've never heard him complain in the school days or college days or even coworkers. He never said anything negative about anyone, so he probably had strong reasons for that. So after Sam Altman was reinstated as CEO, November 20th, November 21st, there was an open letter written by former OpenAI employees where they detailed all the things that they feel like Sam Altman has done. And it's very long. I won't bore you with reading all of it, but I will put it up here and you guys can pause it and go through it. Sam Altman's back as CEO. And now he's not only back, but he's got more power and control than before he got fired. So the whole ass thing backfired horribly for the people who were trying to get rid of him. Now, how does this connect to Suchir Balaji? I'm going to tell you. Remember, they say he felt forced to sign this letter and that he hated, according to his mom, Sam Altman. But then something happened. The lawsuit with the New York Times. Okay, remember I told you in April of 2023, they tried to go to OpenAI directly and be like, hey, let's work out a deal. Well, that didn't work out. So in December of 2023, so less than a month or roughly around a month of when this firing and rehiring happened, the New York Times sued OpenAI for copyright infringement. Why is this lawsuit so serious and different from the others? First of all, I read through the entire lawsuit. It's like 60 plus pages. They show how most of the articles that were referenced by OpenAI in training their chatbot were New York Times articles, meaning that they regarded them as a valuable source. They talk about what they want. Not only did they want, they said billions in damages. And if you were to calculate, I think like it's like $150,000 per infringement or something like this, and there's millions of instances of copyright infringement. Like it would decimate the company. Furthermore, and maybe even worse, they wanted OpenAI to destroy its data set that it trained its stuff on, create a new one that wasn't based on this data set, which would make it useless. This would set a precedent that would make the entire industry basically stunted. And so that is why this lawsuit was so dangerous. Factor into it the fact that Suchir played a large part in this lawsuit. This is where the conspiracy theories come in as to like a lot of people stood to lose a lot of fucking money if this lawsuit went in the favor of the New York Times with the help of Suchir. December 2023, New York Times sues OpenAI. January 2024, Suchir Balaji purchases a Glock 9mm. Later on, we'll find out this was the firearm that was used to kill him. So now we're in 2024, and it's just more lawsuits, and even more lawsuits from newspapers, actors, Sarah Silverman, like authors, everything. What ended up happening, though, there was this approach that OpenAI took where it would start to work out deals with these publications to settle the lawsuits. They would be like, listen, how about we pay you and we can use your stuff to train our chatbots. And major publications agreed to this, like Associated Press, Politico, Financial Times, like many. The problem is New York Times would not agree. They were like, no, we're suing your ass. We tried to come to you to make a deal. You said no in April. Now it's a year later, and now you want to do some shit with us? No. They're becoming a thorn in OpenAI's side, and they have the most serious, egregious lawsuit against OpenAI. Okay, so now is where it's all going to come to a head, because it is now August 2024. Suchir Balaji and Ilya Sutskever both resign on the same day. Later that day, they go out for drinks to celebrate. Now shit is going to escalate because that was in August. Now we have October. What happened in October? The New York Times article with Suchir Balaji goes public. That same day as the article goes public, he has a blog post where he describes in great detail, like mathematically and shit, why he believes OpenAI has committed copyright infringement. He tweets linking to his blog post and to the New York Times article mentioning it. Let me read you some quotes that I've pulled out from the article that I think are relevant. If you believe what I believe, you have to just leave the company. He said the larger problem is that AI technologies replace existing internet services. They are generating false and sometimes completely made up information, what researchers call hallucinations. The internet, he said, is changing for the worse. This is not a sustainable model for the internet ecosystem as a whole, he told The Times. It doesn't feel right to be training on people's data and then competing with them in the marketplace. I don't think you should be able to do that. I don't think you are able to do that legally. This quote he actually told the AP, Associated Press. He said the bag of issues he was concerned about there were more, but he was focusing on copyright because it was the only one that it was actually possible to do something about. In addition to that quote he gave the AP, he also told them that he was going to try to testify in the New York Times lawsuit against OpenAI. Suchir is showing that he is ready, willing, and able to do this. Okay?
He kept saying, I've not done anything wrong. Let's see what happens. Kind of like a warrior-like tone. He said, let's see what happens.
Also, this happened in October, right? At the end of October, Suchir is said to have met with a copyright attorney.
And I talked to Suchir and said, look, you should consult an attorney. And he did consult a copyright attorney.
It's November 18, 2024. This is when the New York Times actually named him as a custodian witness, saying that he had unique and relevant documents. Also in 2024, there were whistleblowers. These whistleblowers that came out before Suchir came out, they were talking about the NDAs. And they were talking about like the severance package and the way he was treating the employees and stuff like that. None of it had to do with copyright. When Suchir Balaji whistleblew, he didn't whistleblow anything to do with his treatment within the company. It was exclusively about copyright. And it was with the New York Times that he whistleblew, who had this lawsuit that was ongoing against OpenAI. Now, speaking of New York Times and custodian witnesses, I read there's more than just Suchir Balaji as a custodian witness, and none of them are dead. So I was like, okay, wait a minute. Why take him out if you've got all these other ones? Ilya was actually a custodian witness, but his stuff is all redacted. So I don't know what he has to testify and what documents he has. But a lot of the people that were named by the New York Times that they wanted as witnesses, who they said might have relevant documents, a lot of those were actual current employees of OpenAI. And I found when I looked through the case history of all the filings in this lawsuit that the New York Times had filed motion to compel because OpenAI was not giving, or the employees of OpenAI were not giving the documents that New York Times was requesting as part of the discovery of this lawsuit. So he quits in August. In October, he goes public with the New York Times. In November, he's named as a witness, November 18th. He's going to end up dead 3 days after this, or 4 days, sorry. They don't know exactly when, but the last time he spoke to anyone or answered his phone or did anything was November 22nd.
It's a tragedy that November 21st was his birthday.
This is what we know about Suchir Balaji's last days. From November 16th to November 2024, he went to LA for his birthday. Okay, he went to Los Angeles hiking with friends, took pictures. He went to Catalina Island. It was his birthday week. He was celebrating with friends. Then on November 22nd, 2024, there's CCTV footage of him coming back. He's like limping with this huge duffel bag from his trip. He has a phone call at 7:12 where he spoke to his parents. They say he was in good spirits. He talked about his trip and what he did. They said they were going to send him birthday money. He made plans to see them in January.
He was happy mood. He's not depressed or anything. And it was his birthday week.
He made plans of going to CES in January.
And then he told them, hey, I'm going to get some food. And the phone call ended. It was about 15 minutes. Then you see him at 7:30 going to get that food again on the CCTV footage in his apartment. He gets the food, comes back with the food. He's got this AirPod in his ear. And that's it. That's the last time anyone has seen. What happened after is a mystery.
It was the last phone conversation he had with anyone. He went into his apartment, never came out.
November 22nd was a Friday. So over the weekend, his parents didn't hear from him. They didn't think it was that big of a deal. Like, it's the weekend, he's busy, whatever. When Monday rolled around, they didn't hear from him. They're like, okay, this is odd. So they start calling hospitals because he had a bike that he would ride around San Francisco. They're like, did he get hit by a car? And they call the hospitals, nothing. The next day on Tuesday, that morning, they call the cops to ask for a welfare check. Cops end up showing up to his apartment November 26th around 1 p.m. They go to his apartment. The door is locked. It's bolted shut. They call the property manager who opens the door. Now, this is an interesting part, the bolt, because for me, this immediately I was like, oh, the door was bolted and locked from the inside. No, nobody could have been in there. He was by himself. Well, then I Googled, can you open and lock back a deadbolt from the outside? Apparently you can. So I don't know about this. The parents were saying that when they looked at the autopsy, they say that the GHB level, they wouldn't even put it on the toxicology unless it was over a certain amount, and that it stays in the system for a certain amount of days. And the one that the body makes is a different amount, and that the amount that of GHB that was in his body were, quote, sedative levels, especially when combined with alcohol. And so if he had all these things in his system, as the toxicology report says, he wouldn't have been physically able, they think, to do this to himself with such accuracy. That's what the parents' response to this was. The parents also talked about other injuries that were not mentioned that they found in their autopsy, like blunt force trauma, and that his cheekbones were broken, and that it seems like there was a struggle and he was like beaten up before he was shot. It's just two totally conflicting autopsies. So which is it? Now let's talk about the Glock. He had 6 rounds missing from a box of ammunition. One of the rounds was in the gun case, and 4 elsewhere were found, and 1 is unaccounted for. And then also the bullets, because the parents then also said there's 2 bullets in his head, and in the police autopsy, they say there's 1. So again, conflicting reports. They also say that there was gunpowder residue on Suchir Balaji's hand, but not on the wound, which is consistent if he had been decomposing, which we know they found him about 4 days after he died. So that makes sense. So if he did fire himself, that's where there's gunshot residue according to them. Then here comes the conspiracy theories, right? Did someone make him do it? Was he under duress? Or is that so far-fetched? Did he just take these drugs, go crazy, was stressed out, in despair, and did it to himself? You decide. So that happened in November. The death of Suchir wasn't really announced to the public till December. And all this fallout that I just told you about happened. Now it's January 6th, and remember Sam Altman's sister who accused him of that awful essay? Well, now she sues him. It's not just an accusation. She fully sues him and details just the horrific things he did. And he and his family together write a letter, like the rest of his family, in response to his sister's lawsuit on Twitter, where they basically say like she's mentally ill and they've been trying to get her help and she's got issues. It says, "My sister has filed a lawsuit against me. Here's a statement from my mom, brothers, and me." You can read the whole thing. It's a lot. So now we're at the present day. And so what is the current situation? So regarding the lawsuit, something good happened in favor of the New York Times where it was allowed the lawsuit to move forward. There's a certain point where it was like, is the judge going to dismiss it or is it going to move forward? Move forward. So we'll see what happens with that. It's still ongoing. Now let's talk about the theories, because there's basically, in my opinion, 3 theories. The official story, he did it to himself. The foul play theory, someone took him out. Or a third one, some kind of crazy accident if he really was on drugs and all this stuff. Maybe he had like a break in some kind of drug-induced psychosis and Googled stuff and took it and did that to himself. If he really wasn't in despair and it doesn't make sense and he just got really fucked up and made a huge, terrible mistake. These are the things that I'm having a hard time moving past to believe that it's foul play. The thing for me is the deadbolt thing. Like, I don't know enough. Yes, technically you could. So they'd have to train someone who's trained in being able to, I don't know, take a magnet or do whatever, pick it and put it back. Is it likely? I don't know, but it's also not likely that any of this shit would happen. So I don't know what's plausible here. But to me, I don't know enough to say if this is just like impossible or not. According to the police, they think cut and dry, nothing there. Same thing with the window. Could have been removed and put back to gain entry. I don't know. What's up with these synthetic hairs? Did someone have a disguise and go in and do something? He was out of town. Did someone come in and was lying in wait? Did they check the CCTV footage from a long time ago? How long were they lying in wait? I don't know. And then as for the foul play, again, we go back to the same stuff. It would have to be like some hitman level shit. And it would cost a lot of money. And whoever would do this has a lot of money. So is it impossible? No. Nobody really knows other than Suchir. For sure is the only one who knows what the fuck happened. So I'd love to know what you guys think. Please tell me what you guys think. I want to brainstorm in the comments and just like have someone to talk to about this, because everyone else in my life is sick of me talking about this thing. And thank you so much for watching. Thank you to Hypnosio for sponsoring this video. Check the link in the description. Use my code. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.